Hi, I'm Aaron Robbins with Intrinsic First, and thanks for listening to the Intrinsic Leadership podcast. We're excited for you to hear all the different shows and episodes that we have. We are starting our episodes in a series with introductions so that you can get to know the co-hosts of the podcast, myself, Jimmy Karam, and Dr. Drea Zagarmi. We thought that it'd be good for you to get to know us a little bit before we start talking about leadership and all the associated topics. At Intrinsic First, our mission is to make the world a better place to work. And we hope that this podcast helps us achieve that mission. We want to keep this fun. We want it to be value added for you and enjoyable. So make sure to stick around to the end and hear some pretty bad jokes from either myself, Drea, or Jimmy. And don't forget to like or subscribe, and we're here to help. So we'd love to hear from you. Leave comments or reach out to us directly at info@intrinsicfirst.com. Let us know what we can do if you're interested in other topics, if you're interested in support. We offer consulting support. We offer leadership training. We hope you stick through and listen to all the episodes. I think that there's a lot to gain, and we think that this is kind of a unique way for people to learn about leadership through hearing stories and dialogue from some experts that have been doing this for quite a while. Enjoy the show. Listening into our podcast. This is us just getting started and talking about leadership. This first episode is going to be sort of an introduction to who we are, why should you be listening to us, and what is our intent here? What do we hope that you'll gain out of these sessions, this time that you're listening to us, and what is kind of our objectives here and what we're trying to do. So how do we want to start? Should we do with the introductions?
Let's do introductions. I hate like heck for you to have to introduce me, or I introduce you guys.
We can do both.
We can do both.
Well, aside from your name, I don't really.
I don't really know you that well. He's kind of walked in here.
Is he had to bring up right off the bat my name? My name. Rosemary Komakaikai. That's who I am. You're Lizzie Conspicuousy, aren't you?
I have a hard time with that last name. I can't wait to get married.
Conspicuousy. That's very conspicuous.
I can't wait to get married. Change my last name.
All right. My name is Drea Zagarmi. Nice Mediterranean Irish name. And people go, really? No, they better say something. It should be one of those clicks over there. Nice Mediterranean Irish name.
I like the Mediterranean pill of that.
Yeah. Anyway.
We're starting on an adventure into your life.
Here we are. Well, let me share with you some of the reasons why I'm here. I don't know why, but no, I'm just kidding. Well, I have a very divisive background.
We want to talk about the diversity of the background.
You're divisive and
did you like
diverse.
That? Yes, divisive. Well, I started off wanting to be a superintendent of schools, believe it or not, when I was a young whippersnapper back there in college. And so I had some educational credits in my background, and so I was taking, and I ended up teaching biology in a high school in the inner city of Boston. And then I realized, no, I don't want to keep doing this. So I went back to graduate school, and as luck would have it, I had a couple of other buddies who were there, and they were working on their PhDs, and I said, well, gee, maybe I can do that. If I'm their friends and I swim in their circles, maybe I can do the same thing they're doing. So I went back to get my EDD at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. And sure enough, I ended up majoring in organizational theory. And I found myself really interested in the psychological problems, or the problems of helping people understand themselves, and what do organizations do? How do people in these organizations, how are they influenced by the organization and its culture? And so that's kind of where my heart and my studies and my emphasis was in organizational settings. How do organizations hurt or harm people? How do organizations help and create good, solid experiences that they thrive in? So that's where my research and my effort took me. And in that process, I ended up doing an awful lot of writing. So I've written a number of books on leadership. 2 or 3, I think, at last look, but I ended up really publishing in academic journals, and they'll be referenced in the studies. We'll get a chance to, if you want to, read some of the stuff that I've written, both in books and in articles. I'm deeply committed to people thriving in organizations. And unfortunately, the organizations are designed to eat people up. They're designed to put them under pressure and ask them to do things that if they really thought about it, they wouldn't be doing.
What was your dissertation?
My dissertation was on the study of one university president at the University of Cincinnati who turned out to be my mentor. His name was Warren Bennis. And Warren was one of the bigger fathers of leadership. You'll see that he's written a number of books on leadership. His most famous one was On Becoming a Leader. It's a wonderful book. But he was an economist at the University of London, and he ended up becoming quite an educator. He was the president of the University of Cincinnati from 1978 to 1985. Very well known. Anyway, I met a number of really fine writers about who are talking about the things that I ended up reading and researching over the years. I became convinced that the problems of becoming a good leader are really a challenge to get to know yourself. Warren's book on Becoming a Leader was really a phenomenal book, and it really put the onus for us on growing to become a leader, because nobody's born a leader; they become a leader.
Yeah,
I don't know if that will be helpful for you as you think about the podcast. You're going to see much of the things that you're going to be learning through the podcast have been a subject of some of my studies, and certainly I wrote two books. One called it's hard to say it, Achieve Leadership Genius, which is really talking about the development of leadership, and another one is The Leader Within, which is the idea of who am I inside this role called leadership.
Yeah, we're going to dig into all that.
Yeah.
So how about Blanchard? That was a small part of your career, right?
Oh, yes.
Don't leave that out.
another wonderful opportunity that I had in my life was to come to work with a marvelous secondary mentor of mine, Ken Blanchard, in which we ended up writing together and forming a company called the Ken Blanchard Companies, which now is just called Blanchard. And it was 40 years. I came to work as a colleague of Ken's in 1980, and so here we are.
Is that what brought you out to California then?
Exactly what brought me out. Yeah, I was teaching at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. I was the assistant department chair of teacher education in that institution. I'd been there for 5 years, and I was the principal of their lab school, which was a K-8 school. And he called one day and said, "I'm thinking about starting a company. I can't offer you any money, but if you come out here, maybe we can build a company together." And I was one of 8 people, one of the founding associates of the Ken Blanchard Company. And we were 8 people, and they were all academics. And it was wonderful because we would meet every quarter and talk about the theoretical ideas that we were writing about and asking other people to try, or we were training people. Those quarterly meetings became an incredibly clear and fun, because we were sitting around talking about the ideas that we were writing about and researching. And as a result of it, I grew leaps and bounds in terms of leadership.
How did you meet Ken? I was kind of curious where you...
I was a graduate student at the University of Massachusetts, and he was a professor on the faculty. And he came a year after I came, and I met him through classes I took. And then he introduced me to my first wife. So we got to know each other really close and became connected that way. Margie, his wife, and invited me to a dinner one night, and also invited a number of other graduate students, and that's where I met my wife.
So of the 8 founders, did you know all of them coming in, moving up?
All 8. I knew all 8 people that we met.
Obviously, you're one of the 8, so you knew yourself. But sorry,
thank you for that.
The other 7.
The other 7.
If we do the math,
thank you very much.
Carry the 9. Make sure you carry the 9.
Oh, it's going to be like this, is it?
Yeah, the whole time.
Oh no! Help me. Okay.
Well, I mean, that's a big jump. I mean, to move out west, right, and not have a paycheck basically, but to go after something you believe in, and it's a leap of faith to come all the way out here. And I'm just curious, as an entrepreneur, I'm curious to know, like, what was the strategy that got you to say, okay, I'm going to move out there? I mean, did you have any?
There was no strategy. I was working at the University of Miami, and I asked for a leave of absence.
Okay,
and they gave it to me gladly. No, just kidding. They gave it to me, and so I said, well, okay. They found a temporary principal to run the lab school and take my place as assistant chair, and and I didn't expect. I expected this was going to be a year of leave of absence, and I'd go back to the University of Massachusetts. I mean, the University of Miami.
Right.
And as it turned out, it just never worked that way. Once we started to work together as the 8, because there were 8 of us, people began to put their shoulder to the wheel and to try to make develop products that would be sold in the corporate world. And so we did a program called Situational Leadership, and it was really short for SL2, the second. And we modified the model of that Ken and Hersey had built during the first 4 years we were there. And then we called it Situational Leadership 2, and that's why it's called the number 2.
Right. And then one of his biggest sellers, I got him, was the 1 Minute Manager. I was kind of curious what your first take on that book was.
That was an interesting experience. That was a very interesting experience. We were in business, and we were working in corporations, selling our skills, our consulting skills, and we were producing we were producing workbooks and the paraphernalia to teach, not virtually, but in class, and as luck would have it, it suddenly blossomed. But Ken, in the meanwhile, wrote a book with Johnson and called The 1 Minute Manager. And he put it in front of me. He said, "Now, what do you think of this?" And I looked at it and read it, and I said, "Ken, what are you doing? This is Well, what are you doing with this stuff?
Sell?
Yeah, the 1 Minute Manager." And some people, somebody wanted to make a quick buck and had the 59-second employee. It was like, really? But that year, 3 books made their way onto the bestseller list. The first one was a book called In Search of Excellence. And then another one, Megatrends by Nesbitt, and then the 1 Minute Manager by Spencer Johnson and Ken Blanchard. And that thing took off. I mean, you can't believe it. It got on the bestseller list, the New York Times bestseller list. You know what it took in those days to get on that list? You had to sell 20,000 copies a month. Well, that book was on the bestseller list for 56 weeks, and wow, and it was like vibrating off the walls. And so the phones came off the walls because people wanted to get him to speak, and so we ended up going out and speaking the same language and telling the same stories about the 3 secrets and so forth. But in the meanwhile, so was the leadership model that we used and built and modified over the years, over the first 20 years we were working there.
That sounds extremely exciting.
Yeah, it was. It was very, very exciting. And so we just got into helping organizations implement some of the ideas that were in, first, the model, and secondly, in the book of the 1 Minute Manager. Mm-hmm. And then Ken began to produce those. He had one called Putting the 1 Minute Manager to Work, and then he did Leadership in the 1 Minute Manager with me and Pat, my wife, and those books just began to sell. People felt there were meaningful ideas, and we began to augment and change not only the ideas, but going more deeply into leadership. Each year, every 10 years, we would put out a book or something like that. And what happened was the ideas that I first got to know as a graduate student and ended up changing as an author, as a co-author, and began to build on, are sitting in the back on the shelves. And I'm very proud of them. But they also, I think, aided the whole idea of leadership itself, because the leadership in the 1 Minute Manager was a movement towards a more deeper understanding of leadership itself. And then as we began to branch out and look at leadership character, we began to look at groups and teams, and over the podcast that we're going to be talking about, we hope to give you some ideas about the evolution of those ideas that we started back in those days.
I could ask tons more questions, and I've heard lots of stories and background, but we want to make sure we got time for all the introductions. Is there any other? So, I know you did consulting with many different companies, big time, professional sports companies and
Chicago Cubs,
Fortune 500,
Seattle Seahawks. Yeah,
right.
I had some successes and some not so big successes. I started to work with Enron Corp, which was a disaster prior to.
You got out of there before things got too crazy.
I got out of there. I told Ken Lay, I can't. I'm sorry, I can't help you. And I that place was very political, and people were not telling the truth to themselves or to others. And I felt sorry for Ken. It was good. But there were some other companies that I really spent a lot of time with and had some great successes with. Newell Rubbermaid, the United States Postal Service, when Runyon was the leader of it, and then he went to Nissan Motors, and I followed him there. So I've been in and out of the bowels of a lot of big companies, talking about leadership, trying to get people to shift their understanding of themselves.
Right. So in terms of summary, is there any other, over the more recent, as you got more into the academics and started doing employee work passion that you want to maybe mention before we move on?
Well, I think you're they'll get us a chance, because enter people like you and Jimmy that are just unbelievably bright stars on the horizon, and you're going to see where those things evolved, because you're in it.
Sure,
both of you guys are into it.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's been one of the best parts of my life, is that you guys came into it.
I think it was if I still remember the day. It was like November 20th. It was a Friday, and we went over to a wine bar, to the three of us, for the first time, and got to see, got to meet you in person. So yeah, I think it changed the way we do business, the way we think about things. So
I'm pretty sure after that meeting, Jimmy and I looked at each other like, all right, we're starting the company officially. Right. He went that evening and did the paperwork to make it a fit.
Yeah, that evening. Yeah.
Make it a
when
LLC.
we left that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that we went to the Starbucks next to that wine bar, and it was the Barrel Room in Rancho Bernardo. And so when you left, we went to that Starbucks, and then we registered the domain name, and then we went and filed the LLC like that night. Yeah,
you guys didn't tell me that.
So we had been arguing about not arguing, but we had been going back and forth trying to decide on a name, because we needed it to be representative of what we were doing. We wanted it to be representative of the academic stuff, but also the application. And we were going through also, and then the biggest constraint, the most challenging constraint, was that the domain had to be available.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You right. Had to look it up. And something simple.
Intrinsic.com did not work for us. It was already taken up. Yeah. They probably wanted lots of money for it.
Over and above, yeah.
So this was it took us, I think, 4 months to figure out what our name would be. So we had that in our back pocket when we met you. We knew it was going to be Intrinsic first, but I don't know what we were waiting for. It was just something. And after we met you, we sat down, had a great conversation. We're like, okay, it's time. This is it. That, it was perfect. Because we agreed at that meeting to do it again. We agreed to every Friday, and we ended up doing that for a good 2 years, and still do it to this day, actually. So that was November 20th, 2020. So lots of 20s there. But yeah, that night when you left, we went from there to the Starbucks, and we started getting that domain name on register and starting the paperwork. Yeah.
That is a wonderful story. I did not know that. And I want to assure the people who are watching, it's not my fault.
Not for blaming you now for all of this craziness. So I think we'll call it for today. And Drea, I appreciate all your info on your background. That was fun.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
And I think we'll pick up on our next podcast with Jimmy.
Okay.
Very good. Hey there, you made it to the end. Thanks for watching our episode. I hope you found some value in it. If you enjoyed it, hit like or subscribe and reach out to us. Leave us a comment, shoot us an email, let us know what you think. If you have ideas for other topics, we'd love to hear those. And you can email us at info@intrinsicfirst.com. Thanks.